Welcome everyone. I'm Tyler Nickel, Director of Product Marketing here at FourKites, and I'm thrilled you can join us. AI is transforming our industry at breakneck speed. And if you're like most companies, you've probably already dipped your toes into supply chain AI. But here's the million-dollar question. Are you focusing on the areas that really move the needle? Today's focus, the AI applications that are quietly revolutionizing supply chains from the ground up. By reimagining how these facilities, schedules, and yard operations are handled, companies are uncovering massive efficiencies, and we're seeing hundreds of thousands in cost savings across operations and labor. And this is where AI meets the real-world impact. I'm joined by Carrie Wigginton, our Manager of Solution Advisors here at FourKites. For those unfamiliar with us, FourKites is a supply chain intelligence company that helps businesses spot and eliminate waste end-to-end through our intelligent control tower, our digital workforce, and our connected applications. We're also joined by Colin Masson, Director of Research focused on AI at ARC Advisory Group. ARC specializes in industry-focused research and advisory services, offering deep insights into technology trends, supply chain strategies, and industrial automation. While its complementary publication, Logistics Viewpoints, provides expert analysis on logistics and supply chain innovations, helping professionals navigate emerging challenges and opportunities. After we dig into these topics, we'll save time for your questions, so start thinking about what you'd like to ask our experts. Let's jump right in. From a supply chain perspective, what makes the facility, yard, and schedule such unique areas compared to warehousing and transportation? And why have they remained so resistant to technological advancement? Colin, let's start with you.
Thanks, Tyler. Really, we're seeing very rapid, much more rapid than I thought, adoption of AI in supply chain much more broadly. But as you highlight here, there's some areas where the opportunity has been somewhat constrained by lack of the data foundations that you need, right? You don't have in yards always the same degree of sensors, but the opportunity, we do have lots of cameras. So there's some things we'll jump into a little bit later on, but and it's often the forgotten part of the supply chain, right? We kind of look at inventory optimization, but kind of product in the yards or assets and containers in yards are often a blind spot for many when they're thinking about their overall end-to-end supply chain visibility.
Yeah, Colin, if I'd just jump in, that was a great point. And from my perspective, what I see with companies that I work with, you're right. Really, it's often used the yard within facilities, and primarily when we're talking about drop and hook operations at companies, and that could be at a manufacturing site or a distribution center. It's also often looked at as a temporary staging area for inventory, and these trailers are out there, and traditionally it's easily managed, let's be honest, by spreadsheets and walkie-talkies. But now with the focus on expense reductions, with labor shortages out there, also with increasing on time and full or OTIF fines that companies are receiving, we're seeing an increased focus on improving their labor productivity, and that would include anywhere in the company. But now they're looking at how can we increase labor productivity in the yard. And then obviously, how can we increase that the product or inventory velocity throughout the supply chain? And we've historically seen that inventory can get stuck in the yard. We have trailers being lost out in the yard, or we have trailers out there and people just don't know what inventory or what product, whether it's inbound raw materials or outbound finished goods, what is in these trailers. So we're starting to see, from my perspective, more and more interest from companies wanting to use advanced technology to help drive those benefit areas of increased productivity, as well as reduce expenses and improve customer service overall.
Absolutely. And especially when you see companies investing a ton of money into warehousing and supply chain, that handoff point kind of gets lost in the mix. So definitely a huge area for investment. And Colin, I'm curious, this next question I think is really good for us to start digging a little bit more into AI specifically, because this is a real world place where actions can actually be driven by AI rather than having it live on a server or have it do analysis. There's actual real world operations that are impacted. So, just as like a ground for our audience who may be new to AI applications in supply chain, can you explain the key differences between emerging AI technologies and traditional automation? Especially, how do these technologies apply to the yard and scheduling operations?
Yes, I think that's probably wise to start with that foundation. And I think you've got a slide or two from me on kind of how ARC, I think we put this definition out for industrial AI back in 2023. So shortly after the hype began around ChatGPT 3.5, which I think, if I remember now, is November 22, right? It's not that long ago, but we could already see a lot of confusion in the language that was being used by marketing teams, by some of our hyperscalers, obviously investing heavily in large language models and what has been framed as generative AI or Gen AI for short. But we've actually been using AI and ML techniques. I would argue that in many ways, the industrial sector was ahead of almost every other sector in its adoption of other AI and ML techniques. And we could see confusion emerging because everyone was calling everything AI Gen AI. So we kind of put out this framework, people, processes, and technology, and how AI is going to impact all of those at scale. But we wanted to make sure we were thinking about the industrial AI tool set, not just Gen AI, which is primarily large language models, really good at natural language processing. And the slide here you'll kind of see is my kind of fallback slide just when I need to get into a discussion with someone about what are all those tools and techniques. And you'll see we've got things that have been around and used for decades for machine learning, for anomaly detection in areas like predictive maintenance, or for quality, particularly in discrete manufacturing. You see lots of application of computer vision to recognize shapes and activities in the case of video, or to read drawings, for example. So there's lots of applications of different technologies, which in many ways, and the next slide, thanks, Tyler, kind of does two things. One, it kind of shows that broad range of AI and ML tools that are being used. And we also kind of researched a little bit, right, where is Gen AI really being applied? And I think we would agree that it's having a major impact, not to be underestimated. So it has, I think, woken up everyone up to the potential of AI across a much broader set of use cases. And in some ways, Gen AI, I think you'll see fourth one down there, has become almost the new user interface. So it may not actually be the AI technology that's solving the underlying problem or providing the predictions or inferences. That may be one of those more predictable and accurate techniques, but you've probably heard the term Gen UI, right? Is because you're starting to interact with assistants or agents and collaborating with those. And almost every UI that I see now has some component of that Gen AI for its understanding of language and its ability to navigate complex systems and simplify them. So I think it's got that importance. The other thing I want to point out about this slide is you'll see there's agent technology in there. There's other techniques like causal AI that is much more root cause based. So you can trace why it made a recommendation, which is another kind of serious limitation of Gen AI. And then you'll see neurosymbolic AI, which kind of blends math capability with some of the scale capabilities that we get from Gen AI. So that's kind of maybe the next wave where we're going to get much more accurate and predictable forms of what is currently labeled Gen AI. And last but not least, in case you're wondering, this is 600 industrial sector companies. This is not financial services or retail. This is companies that make and move stuff, right? That this survey was based on late, just a few months ago, right? Late at the end of 2024.
That's great points, Colin. Just from my perspective, where I'm seeing interest in AI from companies out there that we're talking to, really threefold. One is, I think the most prevalent we're hearing today is computer vision. And I think later on I'll give specific examples of where these different AI technologies are being applied. But computer vision is one. The second one would be what Colin was just talking about, that generative AI. With the large language models. And then thirdly, definitely is of interest a lot, especially to drive productivity, is the agent-based. I think some people may think of it as agentic AI, but the agents that can automate or intelligently automate specific workflows and tasks.
Definitely. I think it's really important to realize that even though things like ChatGPT and the large language models have really taken the stage, that these other types of AI are really being developed and really valuable, especially as it applies to physical operations. So definitely excited to hear more about the computer vision and some of the other types of AI that we're seeing out in the facilities space. So this is actually a really good segue into our next question, which is, what makes AI particularly well suited for solving yard and scheduling challenges compared to previous technology approaches? So what capabilities do these newer technologies bring that weren't possible before?
Let me jump in. I think I've got a couple more slides just to make a couple of points, but I think we kind of almost teed off with this, right? The yard is often forgotten in terms of it doesn't usually have as many sensors like the factory or the warehouse, which is typically laden with automation technology. And so having other ways of being able to go and drive productivity with other forms of AI has really changed the game, I think. And part of that is really what we've mentioned a couple of times now, is the fact that we have lots of other data sources that have been untapped by enterprise systems or by control systems and automation systems. Lots of data that is there but not really used to drive productivity, whether that's your camera feeds, right, in the yard, or it's actually locked away in other enterprise systems. And so when we start talking about tapping into that data, there's a couple of things that arise. One of the challenges straight away is, all right, it's in lots of different systems, some of them from different vendors, right? So you're dealing with that interoperability challenge, but we've got new ways of addressing that, which I think we'll get into, particularly agent technology. And one of its key drivers is its ability to go and get that data behind the scenes, if you will, monitor that data, and then move it when it becomes significant or important to other systems. The other things that I think are really in the next slide, Tyler, is I think the types of data, right, that we can now tap into because of all the different AI tools we have in that industrial AI toolbox. Computer vision is not new, but it has benefited from all the investment in AI infrastructure, and then blended with GenUI, for example, it's a lot more accessible. And so now we can take almost real-time camera feeds, and we can make sense of that, and we can use that to drive specific workflows in lots of different systems. And the way we're increasingly doing that is with this new wave of AI agents. So you can have specialized agents that are just doing very specific tasks or functions, and then use those to kind of drive a multi-agent multi-agent and very often human in loop, right? Collaboration to drive new levels of productivity in areas that have where you don't have all the sensors and all the data conveniently in one place.
Yeah, great points, Colin. And I just wanted to follow up to what you just said with some specific examples of how these AI agents, or sorry, the AI technology are actually being researched and slowly being adopted out there in the field. First off, starting with that computer vision, how are people using that in yard operations? And this applies both to what I would call both drop and hook operations, where you actually have trailers sitting in parking spots or in areas of the yard, both for inbound and outbound, or what I would call live load type of facilities where there is no yard. Everything is when carriers show up, they go directly to the dock doors of either the manufacturing site or the distribution center. But 2 points on computer vision. One is using computer vision to drive gate automation. So you can eliminate the need of having manned gates, which is obviously an expense to companies to pay people to be out there and check in and check out drivers and trailers. And so that's one way to be able to read those trucks and trailers as they're showing up, make sense of what it shows, of what it's reading, match those to anticipated shipments that are expected, and automatically raise and lower the gate arm to allow entry or exit for that facility. So huge savings and productivity improvement there. Second, for computer vision, as far as a use case, would be automating the yard inventory. Again, for those facilities that have drop and hook operations where they are parking trailers temporarily. And when I say temporarily, it could be a couple of minutes, it could be days or weeks, especially if you're looking at potentially ocean containers versus regular over-the-road trailers. But being able to use cameras to monitor the yard and update the inventory of what trailers are out there, how long they've been there, if they move, and match that up to the data being used by the enterprise that shows, all right, what is in that trailer. So that's one use case for computer vision. Also, when we talk about, when Colin was talking about those agents or agentic AI that are assigned to do specific workflows or tasks, we're seeing those being used in examples of potentially reaching out to carriers on an automated fashion to get updated estimated time of arrivals into a facility for planned shipments on any given day, especially if you're using, like FourKites has a real-time transportation visibility platform. If you're using that to track shipments coming into a facility using GPS technology, and for some reason it's not working on a specific shipment, you can reach out to the carrier using these type of agents and get real-time updates, and then read that response. If a carrier responds via email, being able to read that response using generative AI and actually update the appropriate systems and notify the appropriate parties of when that shipment actually is arriving. And then another use case that's pretty interesting is, again, using those one to many different agents that are assigned to specific tasks to actually monitor what inventories are in those trailers in the yard, also monitor the inventory levels of specific products at that facility, again, whether it's manufacturing or warehouse, and be able to do stuff like if the agent notices that inventory is running low on a specific item, to be able to create or generate automated move tasks to a spotter that says you need to go pick up trailer 123 that has this specific product on it and move it immediately up to the dock doors for unloading because that product is needed because it's running low on inventory. So a great use case there where these agents are automating the process, but actually monitoring what the inventories are and trying to avoid either plant shutdowns because the inventories are low, or increase that fill rate for outbound customer orders. And then lastly, generative AI and using large language models. What we're seeing there is basically giving the facility operators and people at the facilities the ability to, in their own language, ask questions to get immediate responses to the questions they have. versus relying on static reports or having to build their own reports to find out, what do we have out in the yard today? So those are just some specific yard-based use cases that we're seeing that apply these new AI technologies.
And Kerry, can I perhaps just add a thought that I should have stressed more, but you brought it out, kind of the real-time transportation visibility platform, and all of the data that you have brought together is critical when it comes to solving some of these AI problems or capitalizing on the AI opportunity. We're seeing the fact that you've been tackling that data problem, and you kind of saw industrial data fabric at the core of my industrial AI model at the beginning, because it still comes back to that data and data quality that you can act on. So don't think AI can solve the problem without having access to that data. And you have a critical differentiator, I think, there as FourKites in terms of the data that you have access to and can make available to help AI do what it does best, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Colin. I really want to kind of emphasize that, where if you're using something that's bolted onto a WMS, you really don't have the context of real world operations at your fingertips. You really don't know, the ETAs of those inbound materials, so you can't inform yard operations. So when you have something that's almost like the connective fabric between your TMS, your WMS, your OMS, your ERP, all these different systems, you're able to take so much context and create really personalized action plans for facility scheduling and facility operations that kind of help with optimizing your operations in the way that you always imagined they could be. So definitely a really good point to make, where your yard lives in a real-time world, and having it disconnected by either digitizing the clipboard or using a bolt-on system that only lives within one of your systems definitely does your business a disservice by not having it interoperate with the rest of your platform. So great points. It was really interesting to hear those use cases as well, Carrie.